Hey everybody, Dameon here, and welcome to the third episode of Dameon's History in Gaming. We're going to talk about, let's talk about my history of the very first Final Fantasy game I ever played. And believe it or not, I did not play the first Final Fantasy first. I actually played this one first, which at the time it was known as Final Fantasy 2, which in reality is Final Fantasy 4. Yeah, I ain't gonna lie, we had issues when it came to numbering. But believe it or not, what actually got me interested in Final Fantasy, you're gonna laugh at this, but y'all should see this coming. What got me into Final Fantasy was Super Mario RPG. Yeah, that's right. And because of that optional boss at that, Coolx. And matter of fact, it was because of Final Fantasy and also Chrono Trigger, I truly got immersed in the RPGs. Oh yeah, pardon the noise. Mrs. DSJ is juicing right now. I'm not gonna lie. There's something about Final Fantasy 2 or 4. You know what, at this point, they released so many renditions of the correct numbering at this point. It's Final Fantasy 4, okay? It's Final Fantasy 4. The story of this, it's like, I'm not even gonna say it's just decent. It's good. Cause let's be real, the first Final Fantasy, which I think everybody's number matched with that. The very first Final Fantasy on the NES, you pretty much select 4 heroes, name them as you want to name them. You hunt for you revive the 4 crystals, orbs on the NES version. That crystals in the remakes. And you trying to stop chaos. Yay! I put it like this. First Final Fantasy had no real plot at all. And the real Final Fantasy 2, and this, unlike when Super Mario Bros. 2 video, I could truly make statements like real whatever this game is, because we only got here's the main Final Fantasies we did get before they released 7 over in the States. We got number 1 for the NES, 4, and 6. We did not get 2, 3, or 5 until much later. So, with that said, the real Final Fantasy 2 tried to attempt a plot, but it didn't really have one either. And the real Final Fantasy 3 actually did have somewhat of a plot, but it kind of focused more on the job system. Final Fantasy 4, which was 2 in the States. This is when you really get storytelling, and this is what kind of sets up the whole what all the Final Fantasy games are known for. The deep story. Love will prevail. Now I would say the whole emo crap started at 7. That would be a lie if I say that. Cause it started with this one. Cause Cecil had some issues. Honey, did you ever play Final Fantasy 4 before? You don't know the plot, do you? Yeah. I don't know why my wife was like, Cecil was not emo. Yes, he was. Even after he became a paladin, he was emo acting. Then next thing you know, him and Rosa have a kid. Yes, spoilers. Yes, I'm going to rant mode without the cursing. But yes, I'm spoiling some plots in the future here. After the end of Final Fantasy IV, Cecil still don't think he's a good enough king or husband for some odd reason. Rosa gives birth to Theodore, however you pronounce that. And then he pretty much let his emoness take over, and he gets possessed. And then Theodore, who pretty much like, I can't be nothing like my father or my mother. They just set up the whole precedence of this country, and it's like, yeah, I stick by my statement. Final Fantasy IV was the game that started the whole emo trend. And yes, this was also the Final Fantasy. Well, no. Okay, I can say this. In America, this was the Final Fantasy game that started the whole crying. Granted, you don't visually see it like you do on 7. But when we see their head bow down, yeah, they crying. They're crying. However, when we finally got Final Fantasy 2, the real Final Fantasy 2 over here, you see that too, though. So really, chronologically, Final Fantasy 2. Y'all have to excuse me. I'm flubbing it up so badly right now. But yeah, Final Fantasy 2, the real one that was on that Famicom, started the whole crying though. It really did. But this game started the whole emo thing. The whole love will conquer all type trope. The deep and enriching storyline, which you have to admit, this storyline in this game was a lot better than Final Fantasy V's. However, Final Fantasy V didn't have a bad storyline, but it still can't touch 6. 6 was the best. And yes, this is Rosa's Cecil's love interest, which will be his wife in the after years by that point. And yes, she's the white mage. Yay. Early on, Rosa's useful from the start, but you need to level her up. And this version of Final Fantasy IV is considered as Japan's easy version. Which, unfortunately, that is not a lie. Because this game is actually easy. But when they re-released it as Final Fantasy IV on the PlayStation, the Game Boy Advance, the PSP, the DS, and the iOS, the real Final Fantasy IV is hard. Okay, it takes a while to grind your levels. That is true. And then the bosses do not take it easy on you if you're not careful. I would like to show off a battle or two though, but this is what you kind of expect from an RPG. Oh yeah, the iOS and the iOS version is based off the DS version, and yeah, there's voice acting in that one, and it's done very well actually compared to Lufia, that's on the DS. Yeah, we're not gonna talk about that right yet. I remember when I borrowed this from one of my friends in high school. this game didn't really have me talking that much. It's just like, I want to make my people stronger. I want to get further into the game so I know what's going to happen next. And then there's some hidden stuff in this game too, but it will take hours of dedication to get it all. And I do mean hours of dedication. Matter of fact, that's how I ended up starting playing RPGs. The Final Fantasy series became my favorite until, well, I tolerated 10, I'll be honest. But when 11 came online, like, no, I'm not playing a MMO. That's just not how I roll. And yes, I just said that. You know that little, you know the main thing, like if you remember from the first game, to the start of this game, this shows you how this theme gonna be played forevermore. The Final Fantasy theme. And it sounds so epic. I better be careful how I say something. My wife may think I'm having an orgasm over the game. Compare this thing to the 8-bit rendition. It's almost like there's no real comparison. Even the PlayStation on games couldn't compare to this thing in the way it's played. That's my opinion, but it's just like, that's what sold me to the Final Fantasy franchise. The story, some of the characters, mind you, not all of them. And the music. Lord knows, you could have the suckiest Final Fantasy game in the world, but Final Fantasy, even 13 and 13 too, has awesome music. I can't deny that. However, when certain things are missing, like the victory thing, the prologue theme, and then even this thing, which what 13 and 13-2 did, those things were absent, and that's a no-no. Oh yeah, I forgot how slow this was. I think y'all seen enough of the story part. Let's actually get to some of the action finally. I ain't gonna looking at the original graphics of this. Yes, it kind of looks ugly because we kind of got spoiled by the DS version as well as the PSP version. It's kind of more smoother and the characters don't look half ugly. But the thing is, you didn't care about all that. And this will kind of, well, this game didn't introduce me to, well, it kind of did introduce me to, no, wait a minute, the ATB bar wasn't in this game yet. Turn-based battles, but at the same time, it was Mario RPG that introduced me to that. I ain't gonna lie, I like the turn-based battles versus you pick auto battle and it battles for you. Final Fantasy 13. I don't know, at one point I wanted to do a let's play of this, but I guess I shied away from it because, well, we when it comes to RPGs like this, you kind of want 100% it if you know it's within your it's within your ability to do so. But the thing is, a lot of the random drops in this game, it will take you a long time to do. Especially if you're not familiar with the drop rates like that. Which that's something you gotta be familiar with. And you know, when you get enough experience points, you level up. But I think that's pretty much basic on all RPGs to a degree. Until they start implementing crap like sphere grids and the crystallarium. Or worse. I know with the system for Final Fantasy 12, I know I'm about to call it the wrong name, but I'm gonna call it what I'm about to call it. The licensure point allocation system. Yeah, yes, I know that's incorrect. But I can't think of the name for the life of me. And I could go ahead and I could tell everyone, if you have a chance to get any version of Final Fantasy IV, get it. And not only that, another Final Fantasy game I would like to suggest that everybody should play, especially if you have an Android tablet or an iPad. Get Final Fantasy Dimensions. Because I'm not gonna lie, that's probably one of the best Final Fantasy games I played in a long time. The only gripe I have about that one is the job system is very picky. Because you would think you'll get job points after every battle, but no, you get the ability points after every battle. However, it has some strategy involved. And in a sense, if you can't really complete most of the stuff you did at the beginning of the game, it gives you a chance to do it near the tail end of it once everybody come together. So it's like, it's not all bad. Granted, the download itself is free, but if you want to experience the whole game, because the free download only gonna have you do the prologue, but to get all 5 chapters, or get all the chapters without any issue, it's 4 chapters actually. I'm about to say 5, but it's really 4. It's only gonna cost you $19.99 plus tax. That's not too bad. Unlike all the bravest. And now I made it to my first boss, the Mist Dragon. I ain't gonna lie, this version of Final Fantasy IV, some of the names of the enemies, it was just named all retarded, as well as the items. But you know what? Because it was a good game, I forgive the game for it. Parry. I don't know why that's even called parry when I'm defending. Like I said, they messed up a lot of stuff in translation. They really did. Okay. Now let me jump. After playing through Final Fantasy 2, I played the American version of Final Fantasy 3, which is 6. Oh my god, this is why this battle takes too long. But at the same time, I just rushed through this shit. I'm gonna take damage, but not that much damage. Yeah, let me try to wrap this up as fast as I can, because it's actually storming now. As soon as this dragon's become a full dragon again. Yeah, that's taking forever. Hurry up. Finally. Took you long enough. Finally! I ain't getting no level. I did not level up at all. Well, I spout as much history as I had with this game for a while. So, let me know about. Leave in the comments and let me know about the history you have of Final Fantasy 2. Well, Final Fantasy 4. I would like to read it. Until then, see you guys next time.